Welcome back to the series where we let a spinner wheel decide what true crime case we are talking about today. And I just want to say I am sorry if the brightness is a little wonky because it just got sunny and my window's right behind us and I thought it would be cloudy today is all
it has been all day.
And before I spin the wheel, I just want to say that we have created a true crime playlist and we have the case of Brandon Swanson and the Yuba County 5 that was part of this series on the playlist, so go check them out. And without further ado, let's spin the wheel. We also picked a better color because the other one was nasty. Let's see if we've gotten a little better at this.
We haven't.
No, we haven't. One day we will.
Maura Murray. This sounds like Sims music.
Today we are going to be talking about the case of Maura Murray. She was born on May 4th, 1982 in Brockton, Massachusetts. She was the fourth child of Frederick and Lori Murray. Frederick will be in this video a lot, but we're going to call him Fred because that's what he went by. She had an older brother named Fred, and then two sisters named Kathleen and Julie, and she had a younger half-brother named Kurt. At 6 years old, her parents ended up getting divorced. She graduated from Whitman-Hanson Regional High School, and she was a star track athlete. She did go to West Point, but then she ended up transferring to the University of Massachusetts Amherst after her freshman year to study nursing.
On February 10th, 2004, Lori Murray gets a call from the Haverhill Police Sergeant Cecil Smith. He's telling her that the night before, a car that looked like Maura's had been crashed into a tree and then abandoned. It was a 1996 Saturn sedan. This was sometime after 7 p.m. along New Hampshire Road 112. One resident had called the accident into the police, but by the time the police showed up, there was no sign of the driver. She could see a car up against the snowbank. A passing school bus driver who lived nearby had stopped at the accident. He saw the car along with a young woman walking around the car. The driver said she wasn't bleeding or visibly injured, but she was cold and shivering. He asked if she needed help, and she told him not to call the police and told him she had already called AAA. The bus driver went home and called the police. As you should, really. The sergeant said the car was locked, so they had to wait for a search warrant to be able to get into it and go through it.
The next morning, the search warrant gets obtained and they go and they search the car. They see that the car is registered to Frederick Murray in Weymouth, Massachusetts. So they call Fred. But Fred wasn't home. He was actually out of state on a business trip. So he was not home to receive this call. And remember, this is before like everyone had a cell phone. People were still using landlines and home phones. A voicemail was left on his machine at 3:20 p.m. saying that the car was found abandoned. Then Lori was called after that because they couldn't make contact with Fred, so they're gonna go to the mom next. When they call her, she answers and she immediately starts panicking because she knows that Maura is the one that's driving the car. Lori gives the sergeant Maura's college information so he can go to the college and look around for himself. Then all of Maura's siblings are told. Kathleen calls her father around 5 p.m. and updates him on what's going on. So now he finally knows that Maura is nowhere to be found at the moment. Fred contacts the Haverhill police and he was told that if Maura wasn't back by the next morning, the New Hampshire Fish and Game Department would start a search. Still, once again, like we are seeing in other cases, the lack of urgency from police. Why are you waiting until the next day? Something's wrong, do it now.
Yeah. First of all, they tell you when somebody goes missing, the first like 24 or 48 hours is the most important.
That is the most crucial time.
Any time after that, you're less and less and less likely to find the person. But then they go, well, if they haven't been missing for 24 hours, they probably just like ran out to get milk or something. Like, I don't...
And her car was found wrecked And someone had seen her, and now she's no longer seen.
By this time, there is more information about the accident. The car had hit a tree on the driver's side of the vehicle, which damaged the left headlight and pushed the radiator into the fan. The windshield was cracked on the driver's side and the airbags had gone off. The family is left confused. They didn't know why Maura would be driving by a town called Haverhill on a Monday night when she didn't have any reason to. And she wasn't supposed to be driving the car at all because it was starting to break down. It had been blowing out black smoke, and a mechanic told them a cylinder had blown a gasket and she was not to drive the car anymore. Maura had been getting rides to and from her classes, and her dad had gone car shopping with her on February 7th. Nobody knows why she was driving it or where she was going.
So this adds so many layers.
Yes.
Why was she driving in the first place when she knows that she shouldn't have been?
Because then that makes you think, like, it would have needed to be an emergency for you to drive a car that's basically undrivable?
Yeah. So then, what was the emergency? Fred then calls Maura's long-distance boyfriend, Bill, to see if he knows anything, because maybe they got in a fight and she was leaving, or who knows. He said he didn't know anything about this, and also agreed with the rest of the family that something bad had to have happened. But the sergeant and police just aren't concerned at this point. They still think she's just going to randomly show back up.
Which you should be, especially, like, she's missing. But also, she said, oh, don't call the police when somebody saw her standing by the car. So there's obviously something that's an issue.
And because of that, police believe it was a DUI situation and that she had wrecked the car and didn't want to get charged with a DUI, so she fled and was going to come back in a day or two, basically when the coast was clear. And the reason that they had thought that is because they found alcohol in the car when they searched it. There were red wine stains, an empty beer bottle, a damaged box of Franzia wine, and so they just believed that she was intoxicated, crashed, and didn't want to get arrested, so she just took off and would come back at a later date.
Fred heads to New Hampshire in the morning, and he has a growing sense of dread. He was looking for a red barn, which is near where the accident was. He gets to the scene of the accident, and the car had already been towed away, but the accident marks were still there. Fred begins to search the area. He doesn't find any tracks and heads to the police department to see what the next steps are going to be. He finds out that nobody had begun searching yet. Search dogs are taken out, and Fred wanted to go with them, but the officers told him he needed to stay back at the station instead of going with. The officer gets back with the dogs and tells Fred that they followed Maura's scent for about 100 yards east and then stopped. They had used a glove that was found in Maura's car, but the problem is that she had just gotten these gloves as a gift and they probably didn't even have her scent on it. So why didn't you use something else?
At this point, Fred is starting to get so frustrated with how the police are handling this entire investigation. The New Hampshire Fish and Game Department finally go out and start their search. After a few hours, they had no sign of Maura. And the thing is, if she walked off, how did she walk off without leaving any trail? Because there was snow on the ground, so where were her tracks? Throughout the day, her family members started to arrive in Haverhill. Lori ended up staying behind because she had a broken ankle and they thought that it would be best if she just stayed at home. That way, if Maura did show up, there would be somebody at the house able to call somebody and communicate like, hey, she came home. Bill ended up getting leave from his post in the military and was able to fly in. And the whole family just thought that the officers that were in charge of this whole situation, they were just acting off.
Bill said he had turned his phone off during his flight to Haverhill. Sometime during the flight, he got a voicemail he thought sounded like breathing and whimpering. The call was traced to a calling card issued to the American Red Cross.
Investigators go to Maura's college, they make their way to her dorm, and they see that it looks like the room is half packed, almost as if she was planning to leave. Sitting on top of one of the boxes was a printed out email from Bill where he was apologizing when he cheated on her. So the theory then changes to she was intoxicated, she wrecked her car, and she just walked off into the woods to basically lay down and die. That she was ending her life because of this. And the family just didn't believe that. One, because the email was from 2 years ago. It wasn't just sitting out in a box. It was stacked away with a bunch of other papers. So that's a little fishy.
I don't know why they're focusing in on that.
It's like they're really trying to just have that idea stuck in their head that that is what happened, and they're trying to make it seem like it did.
They're reaching so far so they don't have to do their job.
And also, they say that the room was half packed, making it look like she was wanting to leave, but in reality, she had just moved dorms 12 days ago. She wasn't even fully unpacked yet. And you know, when you move all of your stuff to one location, it can take a little bit, especially when you're in college for nursing and stuff like that. Like, you just don't unpack all at once. You kind of just take things out when you need them, and when you have a moment, put a few things away. So she was still in the phase of unpacking. It hadn't even been 2 full weeks since she'd moved into that dorm. And the big thing is that if she did walk into the woods to lay down and succumb to the elements, they would have found her in the woods. The search dogs would have had her scent, or what possibility of a scent that they had with that glove, and would have found her. Like, they would have either come up to her on accident, or just someone would have.
The first official day of searching ends, and the family gets hotel rooms. The next day, the family had flyers printed out, and they spent the entire day putting them everywhere. Police were doing a press release saying that Maura was missing, endangered, and suicidal. The same day, Fred started canvassing around the area where Maura's car was to see if he could talk to anybody like neighbors. He thought that police had already asked the surrounding houses and interviewed them, and just weren't sharing information with him. Turns out, he was wrong. Fred goes to Faith Westman's house. She was the first woman to report the incident. At 7:27 p.m., she called and reported hearing a loud thud near her home. She looked out the kitchen window and saw a dark sedan. She told dispatch that she saw a man smoking a cigarette in the car. She tells Fred that while she was on the phone, she sees her neighbor Butch Atwood show up to the car and then pull away. Then about 6 or 7 minutes after he left, she saw the police show up. Later, Faith said she had not seen a man or a person smoking a cigarette, but rather a red light from the inside of the car, maybe a cell phone. Fred then goes to talk to the bus driver, Butch. Butch had called the sheriff's department at 7:43, so Faith called at 7:27, and then Butch called at 7:43. He tells Fred everything he had told the police, and Butch knew she hadn't called AAA. AAA also says they have no record of that alleged call. Butch knew that there was no phone reception though, so he drives the 200 yards to his house and calls the police. One thing Fred noticed is that Butch said she didn't seem at all intoxicated like the police believe her to be.
On Friday, Fred decides he's going to drive to a Vermont police station to put up some more flyers, because he thinks that if he spreads them out to other police stations who already know about the situation, it will be more help. And he was also under the impression that the surrounding police stations knew what was going on. He assumed that the Haverhill police station had called to the surrounding police stations to be like, hey, be on the lookout for this girl. She went missing somehow and we're trying to find her. But the police station has no idea what he's talking about. They had never heard about Maura. They said that that police station never called and told them anything. And this is the first police station that would be called and notified, because that was the direction that Maura was heading in if she went into the woods. So why weren't they told? Be like, hey, be on the lookout. Like, if she would have started walking through the woods, this is where she would come to. That same day, investigators said that they went to Maura's college and they got her computer and they talked to some people there that day.
Before Maura had left in her car, she had been looking up directions to Vermont on her computer and called lodging places. She also sent an email to Bill that said, "I love you more, stud. I got your messages, but honestly, I didn't feel like talking too much of anyone. I promise to call today though. Love you, Maura." Another email was to a professor saying that there had been a death in the family and she would be gone for a few days. And there was no death in the family.
On the evening of February 5th, she was working at her security job. And this job was on campus, and basically she would just sit at a desk and check students' IDs as they came in. Around 1 a.m., Maura's supervisor got a call that she was so distressed she was not able to function. The supervisor showed up and found Maura just completely spaced out, and she was muttering, "My sister," over and over again. She ended up escorting Maura back to her dorm room and was pretty apprehensive to leave her alone, but Maura said that it was fine, that she had a roommate that would look after her. But another thing is, Maura had just moved into a single dorm. Like, that dorm she was moving into was a single dorm 12 days ago. That night, Maura had been talking to her sister Kathleen on the phone, and that could have been the reason that led to her breakdown. She had stayed at work for almost 2 hours after the phone call before she had her breakdown. And she even had a call with her boyfriend in between that time. Later on, Kathleen ends up saying that she had just been released from a rehabilitation clinic, and right when she got out, her fiance drove her straight to a liquor store. This caused Kathleen to relapse, so that might have been why Maura was having her breakdown.
The day before Maura went missing, Sunday, February 8th, around 3:30 in the morning, she crashed her dad's car. Her dad had come into town to visit Maura and go car shopping that afternoon, and then they went to dinner with a friend of his daughter. She dropped her father off at his hotel room and then took his car back to campus to a dorm party. On the way back to the hotel to drop her dad's car off, she hit a guardrail on Massachusetts Route 9 in Hadley. It caused almost $10,000 in damages to the car. Her dad said she was lucky that she didn't get a DUI, but she claims that she had stopped drinking hours before she drove. The officer wrote an incident report, but there was no sobriety test done. The car was towed back to the hotel room and Maura got a ride there. They dealt with insurance and Maura felt terrible. Later that morning, he rented a car and dropped Maura back off at UMass and left to go to Connecticut. That night at 11:30, Fred called Maura to remind her to get accident forms and agreed to talk to her again on Monday. Instead of getting a call from Maura that Monday, instead he got a call from Kathleen saying that Maura was missing.
So the police see all of these events happening leading up to Maura's disappearance, the wrecking the car, the breakdown at work, stuff like that, and they are still holding firm with their theory that she was intoxicated, wrecked the car, walked into the woods, and laid down to die. Fred still didn't believe them. He didn't believe anything that they were saying. When Fred and Bill went to look at Maura's car at the garage where it was towed to, they found blank accident report forms, gloves, CDs, makeup, her favorite book, Not Without Peril, her favorite stuffed animal, birth control pills, and clothes. So then back to the glove. Why did you take that one? Why didn't you take, like, her makeup, her stuffed animal, her favorite stuffed animal that she's probably had for years and years and years? There was also a receipt for $40 that was the alcohol that she bought. And there was a rag in the tailpipe. because of the cylinder breaking or whatever that the mechanic had said, and it blows out black smoke. And if you drove that car anywhere, you were going to get pulled over because you can't have just black smoke billowing and billowing out of your tailpipe. So Fred told her that if there was an emergency and she had to drive, put a rag in the tailpipe. It will make the black smoke not come out.
Which is also a terrible idea.
Yeah, bad idea. But if it was an emergency and you absolutely had to, if it was a life or death situation, I can see doing that.
But also carbon monoxide poisoning, because it comes out the tailpipe, and if your tailpipe gets blocked, like if you wreck in the snow, you need to get out and check and make sure your tailpipe's not full of snow, because otherwise you're going to sit there and be poisoned by carbon monoxide. So putting something in your tailpipe is not a good idea.
And police thought that if they showed Fred the car, just showed him everything, that they would convince him that Maura had left on her own accord and was suicidal. And even seeing this, Fred was like, no, she didn't. Like, I know my daughter. That didn't happen. And now he's even more determined to prove them wrong. So what did he do? He went to the media.
As you should, Frederick. Also, they just so badly do not want to do their job.
No.
That they're like, maybe we can convince the family to just, like, shut up and go home.
For real. Because remember, everyone had drove in from, like, other parts of America. Like, they were all staying at a hotel together. That was, like, their base.
Fred going to the media started to put pressure on the police to start taking it more seriously and doing the searching they were supposed to be doing.
Why not just do it in the first place?
For like the whole past week, you could have been doing literally anything. On Sunday, February 15th, the sergeant finally completed his accident report. Why did it take you that long?
Yeah, what day did this happen? February 10th. And that was, so February 9th is like the night that it happened. And then February 10th, the next day, is when people got calls.
February 15th, the sergeant finally files his accident report. What else are you doing? Like, you just have so many things to do. I understand that police officers have a lot of things to do, but this seems like a very high priority case.
Yeah, I feel like this would take precedent over other things.
And you don't care? After 10 days of Maura being missing, New Hampshire Fish and Game did another search of the ground and air. They used a thermal camera and cadaver dogs, and nothing was found. Kathleen found a ripped pair of women's underwear lying in the snow on a secluded trail near French Pond Road during another search on February 26th. Police did DNA tests and found out they did not belong to Maura. At this point, police call off the search because they have zero evidence. All of the official searching ended. They gave all of Maura's belongings back to her family, and the family believed that this police department was in over their heads with the case and just wanted to be done with it. Which they wanted to be done with it before it happened. They had never brought in the FBI. The family kept searching on their own, no police.
Why didn't you tell the FBI? That's what they are there for.
Also, you didn't want to do it.
And if they were like a small town police, I don't know how big Haverhill is. I truly don't. But if you were in over your heads and if you were overwhelmed with the case and you didn't know how to proceed, why didn't you just call in the FBI and be like, hey, we need help? They could have come and helped. Like, that's their job. Eventually, the time came that the family had to leave the hotel. For the next year, Fred went back every single weekend and searched and searched and searched. And to this day, Maura has never been found. Not a body, not her alive, nothing. It's literally like she just vanished.
Which is so weird that can happen. I know this is a big wide world and it's incomprehensibly big, but it's so weird that people can just like boop.
Maura's disappearance has been called the first crime mystery of the social media age. On the day Maura went missing, Facebook was only 5 days old.
That's crazy.
Like, people were still using MySpace. In the non-fiction thriller True Crime Addict, How I Lost Myself in the Mysterious Disappearance of Maura Murray by James Renner, the theory was brought up that Maura had traveled into New Hampshire with a tandem driver and may have disappeared willingly and started a new life somewhere else due to fears that her pending credit card fraud case would prevent her from being hired as a nurse, or that she was murdered by somebody she knew. And Fred said that he believes that his daughter was abducted and killed. Thanks for watching this episode of where we let the spinner wheel pick which case we're doing. If you liked this, please let us know that we're doing something right. Like it and comment, and we will see you in the next one where we let the spinner wheel pick what what you could just like see like it loading on my face where we let the wheel pick what true crime case we are doing next. Bye.